And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Best Phone Plans Podcast. This is episode 27. Dennis and I are here with special guest Jesse Sims from Ting. Jesse is sort of the marketing manager and coordinates a lot of the partnerships at Ting, which is really cool. Jesse, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I can't complain at all. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here. Appreciate being invited on the channel. I think all the content you're creating is excellent, very informative. Keeps Americans up to date on the latest and greatest plans. And yeah, I think you're kind of one of the pioneers there on YouTube, really spreading the word and sharing ways that Americans can save money on their cell phone bill. And everybody has a cell phone bill, and I think it's a great place to start. And it's not something that a lot of people realize, how many options there really are out there. And people just think about, the big four, which I guess kind of now is the big three. But there's so many more providers out there that often can, offer you a lot more for a lot less.
Yeah, and I think Ting has sort of carved itself out as a little niche carrier offering really valuable, affordable cell phone plans for a great target group of people who seem to really love Ting. I love the subreddit and checking that out. I want to kind of rewind the clock a little bit and ask you how Ting got started, right? So Ting is owned by Two Cows. I hope I'm saying that right. But
Yeah.
that's based out of Ontario, Canada, right? So what is a Canadian company based out of Ontario doing with a United States MVNO?
Well, I think if you look back, so our parent company, Two Cows, is a major player in the domain name space. So we operate both wholesale and kind of retail domain names, and that is worldwide. So we were based in Canada for a long period of time. Originally, actually based in Flint, Michigan. And I think, 8-9 years ago, we decided to kind of move and pivot a little bit and move into the mobile space. And I think originally we actually looked into operating in Canada, but I'm not too familiar, or I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the Canadian wireless industry, but it's very different from the US. There's really three players that kind of all own the same percentage of customers, and there isn't really much real competition. And kind of due to that, they also don't really allow MVNOs to exist. So they don't allow other companies to buy wholesale off their networks and kind of resell that service. And we really realized that we couldn't operate in Canada due to those restrictions. So we thought, why not go south of the border and check out the U.S. And we obviously our other businesses operated in America. We initially worked with Sprint as our partner, and they were a great partner to kind of jump in with and kind of make a space for us in the American mobile industry. And that's kind of why we ended up starting in the U.S. is just because we couldn't really operate in Canada, and obviously the U.S. There's a lot of different carriers and and a lot of and the big carriers would allow other companies to buy wholesale. Like MVNO is a real thing in America, and so that's kind of why we decided to choose the US, is really because we couldn't go into Canada. And then that's all she wrote, really. We moved on from there, and now are a much bigger player in the US, and
Sure, yeah.
and yeah, it's a great space.
We certainly appreciate having you here.
Thanks.
Yeah. So who was your guys' target audience when you came to the US?
So initially, it definitely would have been families and I would say tech professionals. So those kind of two specific demos. And obviously, these are people in general who are looking to save money on their cell phone service. And, at that point of time, I think we were pretty confident that like 99% of Americans didn't even really know that MVNOs existed when we launched. And it was really our main goal to just spread the word, let people know about Ting. We sponsored a lot, I would say, of popular podcasts and YouTube channels, and tried to really get a lot of kind of news coverage and articles about us at first. And I'm not even sure if we really knew that those segments would be the best for us at the beginning, but over time, it really made sense that families were perfect for Ting because our model originally was just pay for what you use, but it was also postpaid. So the majority of budget cell phone services back then were prepaid, meaning you'd top up your account. You'd add data or talk and text for the month that you were using the phone. But with Ting, you really weren't topping up anything, picking any sort of plan. You would add your credit card on file, and then the amount of talk, text, and data that you used at the end of the month is what you paid. And the better part of that is that usage is all pooled, meaning for families, the more lines you have in one Ting account, the less you end up paying per phone. And back then, not a lot of people used a lot of data, so it ended up, with a family of 4, even if everyone was using data, max might be a couple gigs a month. So Ting was really, really good for families and helped a lot of people get off these large family plans where you'd be paying, exorbitant rates per line, and their bills were easily beyond $100, $150. And we kind of really, I think, hit it off with families because of how innovative our pricing model was compared to the competitors at that point in time. And then kind of tech professionals, just because, with Ting, the less data you use, the less you paid. And a lot of, tech professionals, tech savvy people are around Wi-Fi a lot, meaning they realize that, I can just turn on my Wi-Fi and then I'm not paying anything for data. And a lot of these people had Wi-Fi at home and work. So I think they just really understood that. And also, smartphones were very new back then. And so not everybody knew a lot about them. They didn't really understand, how do I check my data usage? How do I limit it? They didn't really, I think, have enough knowledge for the average person to be a great fit for Ting. But for more these niche tech segments, they really, I think, understood why Ting could be a better choice. So that was kind of, I think, where we initially found success with those two kind of target audiences, and really just catering specifically to people who were interested in saving money, in any way they can, which ended up, being cell phone service.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's really awesome you guys are able to offer that kind of flexibility, the pooled data plans. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, I think Ting was one of the very few post-paid MVNOs that were out there, because you were doing the usage and then just billing people for exactly what they used, as opposed to having them overbuy, not use half of their data pool, and then charge them again the next month. So I think that's really cool. But, with the Dish acquisition, we saw Ting introduce some brand new plans and then update them again even recently. What kind of led to that evolution of Ting Mobile's plans, going from that sort of custom plan where you paid for your usage, it was great for lower users, to now offering plans with more and more data?
Yeah, so, back at the beginning of when we launched Ting, our pricing model really made a lot of sense because, not a lot of people were using a lot of data, and we realized that, with this really unique pricing model, we could help people save. But over time, we obviously know that data became more and more popular. Talk and text was kind of less important. And over time, it became harder for a lot of people to save money with Ting, just because of the fact that more and more people were using lots of data, and there's nothing really you can do about it, right? With the kind of evolution of video becoming prominent through apps, social media, et cetera, people's data usage were just continually rising. And, I think, we are customers of cell phone services too. So we understood that, if you can find, $5 or $10 less on a plan, you're going to end up picking that likely, even if you love your carrier. And that's the thing, is we had a lot of people in the past couple of years say, I love Ting, I don't want to leave, but I have found this better deal elsewhere. And the great thing is, being able to work with Dish now, we were able to kind of negotiate lower pricing with the network partners. And then that allowed us to really significantly drop our pricing across the board, and really provide some sort of pricing option for everybody. So we went from more of a niche carrier to something that, whether you use 2 or 20 gigabytes a month now, you really can, save a lot of money with Ting, and we're really competitive with I would say any other carrier out there. And the nice thing is, because we do have very highly regarded customer service and account tools and features, a lot of people will end up sticking with us just because of that. And so since we can now compete really well on price, I think that, we're in a really good place, and it's great to see that now there's options on Ting Mobile for everyone.
And Dennis, I think you had a great question related to usage over the past couple of years, because Ting, as an MVNO, I would imagine would be able to kind of track and monitor usage, right?
Right. Well, I guess that would be more towards you, but yeah, I was basically curious, like with COVID going on and everything going on, how has like the usage patterns kind of changed for your users? Because I know it's kind of, I would assume that with what you've been saying, like usage dramatically increased, which kind of affects your business model with how you were originally aiming at things.
Yeah. So when kind of COVID hit and, the pandemic really happened and people started spending a lot of time at home, we saw cellular data usage drop considerably around the middle of March 2020. And I would say it probably dropped even more so for our customer base compared to the average carrier, just because of how with Ting, the less you use, the less you pay, right? So a lot of our customers realized, okay, well, I'm home all the time. I'm just going to, make sure I'm always using Wi-Fi, and then my phone bill is going to be cheaper than ever before. And I think, in a period of time like COVID, where people really were trying to save money in places that, they may not have considered in the past, Ting became a really, really good option because everybody's home all the time, right? And the majority of people are, calling through video chat on Wi-Fi. So they're not using much of their phone, meaning they're not going to pay much with Ting. And I think that's probably a little bit different from other carriers, where if you're already paying for an unlimited plan, you probably don't care as much about, turning on Wi-Fi, because it's not going to change your bill at the end of the month, which was very interesting. We also saw a slight increase in talk and text over that time, which at first kind of surprised us, because we would think, oh, well, we do cater to kind of a techie base, and we believe that, most of these people will realize, they can use Zoom, they can use FaceTime or whatever, and they're not paying for data. But I think one thing that we kind of, hypothesized based on this is a lot of people likely were reaching out to older family, parents, seniors who may not be as comfortable using, video conferencing technology. And so they were probably calling them and, texting them to just check up on them. And that's likely why talk and text increased in that period, whereas data, dropped significantly.
Yeah, as someone that has a million tech messaging apps on my phone, I can tell you that I use texting probably the most between my work and when talking to family, for the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah. One other neat thing was that we did also see churn, which is the percentage of people that would leave Ting every month, significantly decline during that period, which also makes sense, right? Because I would say Ting's plans during that period of time were potentially better than ever, just because if you don't use much, you're not paying much. So people, never got a bill, higher than they would have expected. So people really didn't leave us during that period either. So, it definitely felt good to know that, in this period of time, we were able to help people save money. And, that's something we used in a lot of advertisements and stuff, is like, if you're at home all the time, we can help you save. If you're paying $30, $40, $50 a month flat for a plan, like, you should reconsider that, because, you're not likely using the data that you're paying for.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question would be, do you know how much data on average Ting subscribers are using?
Well, that's a bit of a hard question, because we have a variety of plans now.
Okay.
So we have our Flex plan. We have now 2 set plans, set 5, set 12, as well as 2 unlimited plans. I think, in general, our like, someone who will pick a Flex plan is likely a lower data usage user than someone who would pick the 5, 12 or unlimited plan. So
Right.
I don't know if I have exact numbers, but I would say, Flex users per device is probably slightly below 1 gigabyte per device. And then when we go to our actual kind of set and unlimited plans, they're typically around the data amount that they're paying for.
Right, right.
And the nice thing is you can switch plans with Ting. So if you pick our set 5 or set 12 plan, at some point you could say, okay, I really want to switch to Flex because I feel like I'll save money there.
So one of the things that is interesting about Ting is you guys have done a really good job at like supporting lots of features like Wi-Fi calling, voice over LTE, visual voicemail, so on and so forth, which is kind of rare in the MVNO space. And I was just wondering, like what is the process in getting support for those features? Like, why are you guys able to do it when other MVNOs can't, I suppose?
Yeah, so this is it's not a complicated response, but I think it's due to the fact that we have a very, I think, agile product team who typically works on, solving problems quickly and effectively versus, tackling something at a large scale. So we often will basically say, okay, there's something that really can help us a lot and doesn't take a lot of effort. We're going to jump on that and kind of solve that first, and then kind of go down from there. So we really, really focus on what's the most important problem that we can fix that potentially takes the least amount of effort, just because that helps us a lot and allows us to push out a feature and update as quickly as possible, and then we can start testing that feature and improving it as we go, instead of spending months on something, launching it once it's perfect. And I think that really does make things easier for us in terms of pushing out features. And I think in general, like, we are all customers too, and we try and put ourselves in the customer's shoes and try and think about what is really the most important thing that they need to be that they need right now, right? So I know there's a lot of competing priorities, a lot of people who would prefer one thing to be done versus the other, but we try and really just focus on, okay, what would really benefit the customer experience first, and how can we tackle that? And then once we tackle the thing that will have the largest impact with the lowest amount of effort, we kind of move down from there to really solve any sort of issue and launch any feature as quickly as we can.
That's great. That's great.
Are you able to share maybe something that you're working on right now, like a cool feature that's coming out?
Well, I am not on the product team, so it's hard for me to talk too much about that. I think, we're excited for a lot of things in the future regarding Ting. I think we're excited about Dish launching their own network because, at some point they will be really an MNO, and they're going to have a, 5G only network, which we're excited about because, there's a lot of, when we're building new, products and features, and our product and development teams really, we need to take into account of a lot of older technology when launching this, just because, carriers have been around for a long time. These networks, have 3G, LTE, but being able to launch on a 5G only network actually, simplifies this for us significantly, and will allow us to, launch features more quickly, less QA testing, less complications, which should really streamline some of these, I guess, features and delivering a product of some sort. Like, we're really excited about being able to do that a little bit quicker, I would say, than potentially having to use a network with more older infrastructure that we still need to take into account when kind of building those tools.
Gotcha. And Stetson, I'll let you go. I know you're chewing at the bit here to ask your question. Go ahead.
Well, I'm curious now. It sounds like, eventually Ting will migrate over to Dish's 5G network. That's going to be incredible for development standpoint. What is that migration going to look like for existing Ting customers? Because they're using potentially older devices. They're likely still on 4G LTE. Will you be eventually bringing everyone over, or, what can they expect going forward with their Ting service?
Yeah, I think this is still a ways away. I know Dish is not planning on launching their network for a while, from my knowledge. So I don't think I have an answer to that right now. I think
Sure.
if anything, we would really try and help and assist our customers to make it as easy as possible for them to make that transition. I don't know if I have any updates on that or know really enough. I'm more of a marketing guy than a product guy.
Yeah.
But me knowing Ting, I know that we will do our customers right and really try and make that process as effortless and smooth as possible. But I also know that it is likely several years away, so not something to think about too much or worry about at the moment.
Sure thing.
So I got a really big curveball question that you probably weren't expecting. Can you tell me how you guys got started on Ting Internet? You guys offer like fiber optic internet.
I can. I actually worked on internet for, I would say, the first 2 years that we ran the business before we kind of grew internet to a point where we ended up kind of splitting the marketing teams. But we initially wanted to have the ability to own the network that we operate on. In the mobile space, we don't have that ability. So obviously there's limitations there. And we knew that, that's something that Two Cows, our parent company, really wanted to do. So our first kind of initial foray into this was purchasing a fiber internet company in Charlottesville, Virginia, called Blue Ridge Internet Works. We purchased them. We started, expanding their fiber footprint in Charlottesville, and since then we've really tried to identify towns and cities in the U.S. that we feel are underserved by the current internet providers that exist there, and come in and lay our own fiber and try and give them a better experience at a lower price with better speeds in places that really don't have much competition. Like a lot of these places mainly only have Comcast and not much competition there. It's really a monopoly. So I know there is several kind of other companies doing similar things, but there's so many towns and cities in America that I think could be served so much better, and we know that. So we're looking for kind of dense regions that we can lay fiber and light it up and try and help out a lot of people to have a better experience at a lower price. And I know there's a lot of people who are excited to get off Comcast. So it's exciting, and I think it's been doing really well so far. We've launched in many different towns and cities now. We're laying fiber. We're still working on more, and it's exciting to, I think, own the network that you operate on, because it allows you to do a lot more.
So what's the end game for that? Like, are you guys dabbling with the idea of like making your own cell phone coverage on like a regional basis? Like, what's the end game for this?
Well, I don't think from a mobile perspective we're ever kind of thinking about owning the network. As Dish really owns the Ting customer base now and brand, we'll be jumping onto their network. So I guess realistically we do own our own network as Dish owns Ting. So I guess we kind of got there, just not through our previous parent company, Two Cows. So I do believe that that's going to make things, much better for our customers moving forward. Less, I think, device and network issues, just because we're the ones who own it. So we don't have to kind of jump through hoops to make things happen. We're the ones who are able to kind of do it because, we own it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just thought that was crazy, and I also thought the locations were a little odd when I was looking at the spots, but what you said makes a little sense. I get it. Just saying, if you want to throw in a word, you're more than happy to come up to Western Pennsylvania or anywhere in PA if you'd like.
Thanks. Well, I think if you go to ting.com/internet, you can actually submit your town or city to be lit up with Ting fiber. So definitely go in and submit your town.
Yeah,
maybe it'll happen.
Funny, Jesse. When I was looking to move out of my house in Massachusetts, the cities where Ting Fiber was one of they were the cities I was considering, because I wanted to make sure I had fast internet, and I knew Ting Fiber, along with Google Fiber and a few others, would be able to offer that. So that's really cool that this cell phone company you wouldn't necessarily associate as an MVNO offering gigabit fiber home internet, but that is really, really cool. I want to kind of jump back to the mobile side of things a little bit, because I know Ting is really active on Reddit. You guys have a great Reddit community and thread. And I wanted to ask you, like, how has the Reddit community comments, feedback, and suggestions played into the development of Ting, whether it's prioritizing features or addressing certain customer concerns?
I think, I know it has helped immensely. I think I have a unique, perspective here, just because I was really the person who, when I first started, I ran our social media and communities, and I first identified that Ting was being talked about in a lot of different places on Reddit, specifically the frugal subreddit. We were very popular there. There was this guy who posted a thread about how, he helped his family save thousands of dollars a month just by switching to Ting. This was at a point when I think Ting had only existed for around a year, and nobody, not nobody, but most people, I would say, on Reddit didn't even know Ting existed. And this post blew up, a couple thousand upvotes. It was the top of the frugal subreddit for, a day or two, and had, hundreds and hundreds of comments. And, I'm seeing this and I'm saying, okay, well, it's nice to see these discussions on Reddit. And, I love to see that. And, wouldn't it be nice to really have a community of people that can come and talk about Ting in, a central place? And, in general, Reddit is more of, an unbiased forum than something like, traditional social media, and allows people to give different perspectives. And I felt like creating the Ting subreddit would be a great way to kind of bring those discussions in one place and allow people to, ask questions, get answers easily, and easily be able to search other, people's posts. And, the nice thing is on traditional social media, if somebody asks a question, Ting customer service is going to be the one to respond. But on Reddit, you often get other Ting customers, maybe just other fans of the mobile space in America. And I knew that this was a good way to generate those discussions, get people just talking about Ting, but not even just Ting. I would say cell phone service in America in general, because we're really all about people saving money. And, if you can find a better place, a better plan elsewhere, we understand that. We are customers too. People want to save money. And as much as we want you to stick around, if you can find something that's better, we're cool with that. We want you to save money because we know there's enough people out there that really can save with Ting. So that's kind of how it started. It's a funny story of how I actually got the /r/Ting subreddit, which is, sure. I just, searched it on Reddit, and there's like 4 members, I guess, or followers of the subreddit, with like no posts. And I think originally it was supposed to mean like arting, like ARTING, which is like, I guess, making art. I don't know really what it was, but some guy created it. I don't really understand, but I messaged him being like, hey, I run social media for Ting. Is it like, are you open to potentially, making me a moderator, or kind of, handing over the subreddit to me, because I know that nobody's really using it. And funny enough, he was like, if you send me some Ting swag, I'll do it. And I don't know if that's considered a bribe, because I'm not the one who was trying to bribe him. He's like, oh, send me swag, and then sure, I'll give it to you. So I did that, and then we got control of it. And at that point in time, to be honest, it was a little weird, because this was, late 2013, early 2014, where, to my knowledge, like no other companies were like moderating their own subreddits. And I felt a little bit weird about the fact that like we were moderating the Ting subreddit. So if people came in, they would be like, okay, well, Ting is stifling conversations, like negative comments, negative conversations. But that's not what I wanted. I just knew that, in general, people like living in their own ecosystems, their own communities, and getting support there versus having to go somewhere else. And I was like, man, what if we can offer technical support directly on Reddit and get our customer service agents in there, where you can actually just, DM or private message somebody, one of the moderators in the Ting subreddit, and get support that way. And I thought that was really nice, but I was just a little bit worried that people would come in and think that it was, just shills, and everybody, anyone who said anything negative, we would just, remove it. But I made sure that did not happen, and it really doesn't. I think people have brought up many issues that, made a lot of sense. And I think going back to your original question, it told us a lot, I think, about what people really wanted in terms of features and plan specific stuff too. Like before we launched our new plans, we took a long look at a lot of the discussions about pricing, because I think people over time knew that current Ting plans were becoming a little less, just a little less exciting and not as good from a real cost perspective if you're a customer trying to save money. So we looked at all of those and really do take into account, any of the comments, any of the questions, the concerns, the suggestions we receive. I would say every day when I, start working, that's one of the first tabs that I open, is just to check it out. And I know our customer service agents do the exact same thing. We actually have an integration in Slack, which pulls in new threads for us so we can easily kind of see them. So we're trying, to stay on top of it, to understand what's important to customers and really try and tackle those issues before they become a larger problem. And I think that's one great thing about Reddit, right? Is like a lot of these people are the first people that might even notice it. They're going to post something about it right away. We can tackle that before it becomes a larger issue. So it's really important, I think, just for understanding, a lot of the diehard fans and what's important to them. And yeah, it's been immensely popular. And since then, I think we have over 4,000 subscribers. We get tens of thousands of page views per month. And I think it's great because it's an unbiased place where you can come in and just ask questions. A lot of people saying, hey, Ting looks good, but like, is it really good for me? Is it too good to be true? What don't you like about Ting? And we get, genuine responses there. And we try and not like insert ourselves in those conversations unless, we really think we can provide some help or insight. And it's typically more technical support stuff where we come in and try and help. More of the general discussions will either try and give our own opinions, but not try and, position it in a way that makes it feel like we're trying to push everybody to switch to Ting. Because, like I mentioned before, we really just want to help people save money on their cell phone bill, however that can happen.
So on the topic of features or things that are requested pretty often on Reddit, a lot of users are wondering about eSIM support. Do you know if there's any plans to get that going anytime soon?
Yeah, so it's something we've been considering and want to do for a long time. I actually was speaking with a product manager recently, and it's been on the top of his list for a long time. And I think one of the main issues kind of leading up to 6 months ago is that, we're a much smaller organization than the bigger carriers, right? So it was a lot harder for us to really put in those resources to make eSIM happen just because we're small. We're not a huge company like Verizon or AT&T or T-Mo. So, we had a limited dev team, limited product managers, and based on resources at that time, we didn't really have the ability to do that. Now, since being owned by Dish, a large amount of resources right now are going into our MSE platform. So Ting is actually going to be kind of operating the infrastructure that Dish is going to be running on from kind of a billing and provisioning standpoint. So that is really the first thing that our dev team is focusing on, because all of Dish's cell phone services will be running off of Ting's backend. So that is something that has been really our main focus since being acquired by Dish. And eSIM is still on the top of the list. It's just there's always competing priorities, and often we need to really choose what is the most important at the time. And for Dish right now, it's really this MSE platform. So
well, that's exciting stuff. I didn't know that. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. It's really exciting that they're going to be taking your customized tools that you developed and using it for the whole of Dish. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if you're able to talk a little bit more about those. I know I was reading on Reddit, user/literally unlimited. Shout out to that person providing some awesome value.
Mitch.
Yeah, shout out to Mitch. Okay, Mitch is a rock star. What I wanted to ask you about is, can you describe what went into the development of those tools? Or it sounded like Ting basically built these custom in-house tools to better serve their users. And I guess I'm wondering, like, were you using open box software before, just off the shelf, run-of-the-mill stuff? What led you to build these tools, and what have they enabled you to do that other carriers may not be able to do?
Yeah, so we kind of decided to develop these tools because we really couldn't find anything out there that worked for us. And we realized it was easier and cheaper to just build something from the ground up. And, because we're not your traditional carrier, the existing tools just really didn't fit how we wanted to run things. So, we decided to build everything from the ground up. And, that gave us a lot. It just gave us a lot more of an ability to be smarter with how we built these tools and features, and there was less limitations because if we wanted to do something, it's not like we're having to talk to another company or get them to do it. We just say we want to make this happen, and we did. And I think back when Ting started, the only focus was like, how can we improve the experience for Ting customers? And it still is. It's just there's a lot more ongoing now with Dish and stuff, but it allowed us to spend a lot of effort on building our account tools and features and really everything that encompasses from the ground up and just the way that we wanted to make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think like in terms of problems that we would have experienced with like off the shelf solutions is we really didn't end up using them in the first place. So it's because we just couldn't really find anything that worked for us. And and I think, that's the reason why our customer service, I think, is so highly regarded, is because we didn't follow this mold. We didn't say, okay, the majority of carriers out there are using X platform, we have to use this. We just said, we're going to do this ourselves. Like, we know that at the end of the day, we just need to make people happy, and we need to, be able to provide and offer them with everything they need. And we're just going to focus on what's the most important, and then create our own tools to tackle those issues. And that was kind of the initial thought process.
Yeah, that's incredible. Can you give like an example of what that allows like a customer service rep to do? Like, what's empowering these people to provide such good service? I feel like when I reach out to other providers, I am not treated with as much knowledge, expertise, and the problem just takes way too long to resolve itself. But when I tried Ting, I mean, it was years ago at this point, but the customer service rep I called was friendly and knowledgeable. So like, what are the tools doing? Are they pinging certain people, or like how is the system working behind the scenes?
I would say the reason why our customer service is so good is in part due to our tools, but also I think just because of how we empower our customer service agents to, in general, just help people however they can. This goes so far beyond what a traditional customer service team would do. Our agents don't have any scripts. They don't have to limit calls to any certain amount of time. They can solve all of your issues without having to transfer to anybody else. We give every single agent the ability to do, anything they need to help a customer, right? And sorry.
I was gonna say I give you a double thumbs. I was gonna say I give you a double thumbs up for that because I am knowledgeable about how customer service typically works. Typically you have your KPIs, right? Your key metrics that you have to meet, right? If you work for the company with call adherence time and all that other good stuff, and you're very limited. You don't get freedom of thought, right? It's like you have permissions to do X thing, and if you want to, if the customer needs help with something else, you got to talk to billing so they can do that one thing, and you got to talk to X, Y, and Z before you can actually get the job done, or you have to file a ticket to go off to some higher power that you can't actually talk to, right?
The tickets.
And the funny thing about that is I think transferring departments would end up making these calls longer than if they just got one person to solve it in the first place. So, as much as we aren't saying, okay, you need to be off the phone after 3-4 minutes, I think in general, we probably solve people's issues faster than a traditional carrier just because there is no jumping from department to department. And, every time you call someone and, they transfer you, they end up asking you all those like intro questions again. And you're just like, I already told you my account number. I already told you this. And, we just eliminate a lot of those just like, kind of stupid things that don't really add any value other than, slowing down this process and making you kind of annoyed, right? Like it's just not a good experience. I will say there's a lot of funny, I think, customer service calls that we've had because our support team really is told help people however you can. This goes very far beyond just helping them with their cell phone bill and their cell phone service. Like I've heard, I think we help with a lot of apps and stuff too. So someone might call in and be like, Google Maps isn't working for me. Like I'm trying to press this button, but I can't, and it's not working. And, often these agents will like pull out their own phone, they'll open Maps and they'll say, okay, you need to click on this button, you'll do that. I know there's a lot of people as well who sometimes just want to talk. Like they'll call in and maybe they're a bit lonely. And I know, a lot of agents will just chat with people and they have a lot of good experiences that way. And I think, I don't know if you realize it, but there's a lot more people who do call in who, sometimes I think are a little lonely and don't mind talking to someone. And I think as an agent, you're told help this person however you can. And I think our agents really do that. And it allows them to, I think, feel a lot better about their job, right? They're not stuck in this little box. They're not, there's no real like numbers drilled down their throat of like, you must talk to X number of people per day or make sure the calls are limited to a certain amount of time. And I think that pressure that's lifted allows these agents to be a lot more I think happy about coming to work every day and helping people because, there's a lot more that you can help people with than just cell phone service. And I think, phones in general go a lot beyond just, your billing and, oh, how much data did I use this month and that sort of thing. And so we're able to help people. I think typically it's mostly just phones, but it goes far beyond kind of just the billing and typical questions that people would call in for.
Oh yeah. I'll just say it sounds like you're doing a good job. I mean, it shows in the performance. But I'll just say for anybody that doesn't know, a typical call center job is not a fun thing that I recommend to anybody unless you really need a job.
I think that's amazing to hear that Ting is doing such a wonderful job with that. And yeah, kind of doing something different, I feel like, in the industry that's typically so regimented. And as Dennis mentioned earlier, like KPI driven, really following the numbers, not really just letting people be people and hanging out. I have a question kind of related to the Dish acquisition and customer service. So Ting, small little carrier, built up this astonishing reputation for customer service and helping people. Dish, I'm going to say they just don't quite have that same reputation right now, and there may be some concern about Ting being able to maintain that. Can you talk about maybe like, is Ting going to be able to continue providing this level of customer service? What may be happening to those existing agents, and just things surrounding that sort of transition to Dish ownership?
Yeah, I think Dish has been a really great partner from that standpoint since this transition has happened. All of our customer service agents, are still working on Ting. There has been no real transition in terms of us moving our customer service to a different team or a different country or anything. It's the same team, same everything, and I think I can't say what will happen in a couple of years from now, but from my knowledge right now, there's no plans to change that because, we are still a small team, right? Like we still are very small, and I think we're smart that way. And it's not like there's crazy overhead, despite the fact that we do have great agents. And like from my knowledge, from what I know, and I still hear from customers every day and see people on Reddit talking about how excellent our customer service is. I know agents at our company, and they're still having a great experience. Nothing really has changed. And if anything, things have gotten better because, with Dish, coming on board and acquiring Ting, we've been able to lower our pricing so much that I know we have people calling in saying, I've heard about your new plans. Like, I can't wait to switch. My phone bill is going to, be cut in half, or I'm going to save $10, $15 a month. So I think the only change is that people are happier right now. Everybody, right? Because people would call in and people would be sad about leaving. Like, this is before we launched new plans, but they would say, I love Ting, I don't want to leave, but I can save $10 a month, and I need to save that money. So I love you guys, but I have to leave. And now we're not getting that anymore, right? And so as an agent, I think you feel happier. And everybody still has their jobs, still has the same, no crazy KPIs or anything. Their goal is to just help people however they can. And so I would say things have improved.
So, I was just thinking about this, but like, as you guys expand, right? Because like obviously Dish is going to become a powerhouse once they get things up and running. How are you going to actually keep up with all the volume that gets generated? Like you said, your goal is to try to keep the team domestic, basically, right? How are you gonna? I mean, how are you gonna do this? Like, do you have like a game plan, like for more self-service options, or like, because like if you think about it, like massive companies like, let's take Verizon, right? They probably got like 50,000 employees just doing like call center work in the U.S. alone, right? And then they got all those outsourced people for 24/7 stuff, right? So how are you guys gonna pull that off?
Well, I'm not sure I'm the person who has that answer, but like I will say that Dish has been acquiring more cell phone services than just Ting, and maybe they're going to kind of operate multiple sub brands who all do have their own customer service. I know they did acquire Republic Wireless, and I think maybe there will be some sort of transition where Ting ends up managing Republic as well. I don't know what's going to happen with any of that, but I do know that the way that our customer service is currently structured is working really effectively for Dish. And maybe it is due to the fact that our agents are empowered and can solve problems quicker and faster, right? Where you might think the traditional, customer service structure actually works better. But maybe, and from my perspective right now, I think we're able to really help customers quicker and better than that traditional setup. So perhaps, we just continue to grow. Like, we do have, obviously with the future now, everybody's working from home, right? So I really don't think it would be too difficult for us to expand our teams and continue growing that, but continue with the smart way that we empower our agents. I don't think it would be anything too hard to do, but I also am not an expert.
Sure. I'll just say real quick, I don't think the current structure for customer support is good by any stretch of the means. But I also know I can also understand the reason why it exists in the way that it does. And by that, I mean, like, when you're such a large company, right? Like, I'm going to take Verizon again because they have their hand in like everything, right? They sell home-based internet. They got their Fios product. They got their wireless. They got X, Y, and Z, right? It's really hard to train somebody to know and be informed about all these different products, especially when the turnover rate for call center jobs is something like 70% or something really ridiculous like that, right? So, like, if you're an employer, you look at it, you're like, okay, I'm out to make money. I'm going to do this in the cheapest way possible. I know that out of like a class of 100 people that I hired, there's only going to be like 10 of you guys that stays for like longer than X amount of years. So that's one of the reasons why they probably divvy it up, right? Like, you want your salespeople being just sales, right? You want your tech person being just IT, because then you can kind of segmentize and shorten the training length of time and not have to worry about all that good stuff that goes with it. As a smaller company, you guys probably had an easier time, because it's got that family feel. It's not really like a number, but as someone that like understands like the KPIs and all the automation that goes into it now with AI, like I don't know if you guys do this or not, but I know companies like Verizon literally track like the tone of your voice. They have like an automated machine that tracks like the tone of your voice when you call someone.
Oh my god!
To like see what the customer interaction's like. That's how deep they get into like those measurements.
Yeah, I would say, I know that, we don't have the turnover rate of a typical call center. And I know that's also because we do a lot of promotions from customer service into other teams. So like like always. Like I know so many people that started in customer service that now work on the product team, on the dev team, in marketing, like so many people that have the ability to really grow beyond that role, because we do, I think, a really good job of promoting internally and, finding people that, are high achievers that have a lot of passion and drive, and, and then we really, I think, set a good example where when new people come in, they say, okay, well, if I really work hard and prove myself in this role, like I have the ability to try something new. And we actually have a really neat campaign, I guess you'd call it a campaign, that our HR launched, where it allows you to try something in another part of the business for a small period of time. So it's kind of like a small part-time role within your full-time role to really get you experience in a different field. And so, a lot of people who come into customer service, that isn't their end goal. That's not where they really want to live forever. So they're able to really dip their toes in some other part of the business. And if they like it and if they succeed, they have the ability to really grow and move there. So I think because of that, our turnover rate ends up being a lot lower, which in general allows us to kind of keep this structure because we don't need as much rigidity in how it's built.
That makes sense. And sorry for dragging that on. I actually got more interested in as we talked. So,
yeah, where is your customer service team based out of right now? Like, obviously, you're an Ontario, Canada company, but is it in the U.S.? Is it in Canada? Where are you located?
It's also in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Yeah. So, I worked on our main floor of our building, and then the top floor was all customer service. So
wow.
same
They got
building.
The view.
I know, right? They have all the nice windows and everything. I mean, now I have some windows because I work at home, but yeah,
Yeah, so with work from home, like, are you guys still limited to just Canadian employees, or are you guys also taking people in the U.S., or does that get complicated?
So as much as Ting's headquarters is based in Toronto, we have employees, all across the U.S. So we have a warehouse in Starkville, Mississippi that does, shipping all our devices and our SIM cards. We're a fully remote company now, so we're hiring people from anywhere. So it's really not about being in Toronto now nearly as much as it used to be. Like, I don't think it's a requirement whatsoever. For me personally, like, I don't know if I want to work from home full time forever. I don't know if that's kind of my style. I like to I think from a marketing perspective, being creative and brainstorming, like there's something about being able to like bounce ideas off people in person that's just not really the same, I find, virtually. So for me personally, I kind of like being here and hope that, when the world goes back to normal, we'll be able to at least maybe meet, a couple times a week. But I know in general, across all of our business, it's not about being in Toronto. And we have people working on the mobile business that live all across the US. And, thinking about our internet service, which, is in US towns and cities, the majority of employees live in America. So we do employ tons of Americans, and yeah,
that's exciting.
That's
bigger.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Stetson, do you want to round things out and ask the fun question that we asked all of our guests?
Absolutely, Dennis. Jesse, this is one of my favorite questions. So we ask 2 questions, kind of rounding off the show. Questions are, what cell phone do you personally use? And what cell phone plan do you personally use? And I thought this might be interesting because Ting doesn't offer service in Canada, so we may actually get a Canadian provider as a response here. But Jesse, what phone and what's your plan?
Sure. So I am an Android user for sure. I always have been. Not a fan of iPhones, really. I don't like how, it's very set in stone in terms of what you can and can't do. I've always loved Android from the beginning. My first phone was a Nexus S, which I was obsessed with. I loved it. Then moved to kind of the Nexus 4, then the Nexus 5. I was like a Nexus guy forever. Of any phone I've ever had, I think the Nexus 4 is my favorite phone to hold. That phone was just like
the
amazing.
Glass
it had,
and the little like dots of reflectiveness on the back.
And it had like concave sides that you could hold, like slightly concaved. It just felt so good. It was the perfect size. Like, I don't like large devices, to be honest. I'm somebody who, I don't watch much stuff on my phone, to be honest. I'll use it as a remote with my Chromecast, and like, sure, I text like that. That's like, honestly, it's funny because I work for a cell phone service and I'm very into technology and computers and stuff, but I'm not somebody who watches a lot of stuff on their phone, and I use it more for kind of communicating and sure Instagram and Reddit and stuff. But I'm more of somebody who would like use it as a remote, let's say, versus watching things on it all the time. So uh, this is kind of a background on my current phone, but I was always a Nexus Google guy until I actually had the ability to test out the Galaxy S10 Edge. And I've never been a fan of Galaxy. I didn't like TouchWiz. I didn't like the UI. I just wasn't a fan. Like the older, like S series, just the I don't know, the devices, the overlay, the UI like really turned me off. It was too complicated. You'd pull down the notification bar. Everything was like huge and like blue. And I wasn't a fan. But I tried this S10 Edge and it was a little bit smaller than the majority of devices out there. I really liked it. I also felt like they streamlined the OS. And to be honest, I've been using this since it came out and I have had no reason to change. It has, it's like completely, I mean, I don't know if it's completely waterproof, but like IP7
It's
maybe.
IP68.
IP68. So I love that it's waterproof. I love that it's kind of the perfect size for me. The camera's great. To be honest, like I haven't had a need to upgrade. The phone is flawless. I think I factory reset it maybe a couple months ago after using it for a year and a half, 2 years. Just because I think over time you do want to do that if your phone naturally will start to slow down. But that is my current phone. I will say like if I had the ability to choose any phone, I'd probably choose one of the new Pixels, just because
yeah.
I really like the kind of pure Android experience. I think those devices are great. I know the cameras are awesome, but to be honest, I'm really happy with where Samsung went, and I think they listened a lot to people who had issues with their bloatware and kind of complicated UI, and I think it's up to par with really any Android phone out there. So that is my current phone. When it comes to my current plan, you guys may freak out a little about how much I have to pay for cell phone service because the Canadian market is not the greatest. I mean, forever I paid, I think, $60 a month Canadian, which, maybe like 55 American, for 4 gigs of data.
Whoa.
And now I've gotten a little bit of a better plan through a provider called Kudo Mobile. The funny thing about Canada is while there's 3 big players, they also have their own like child brands or sub brands that are kind of positioned as like the cheaper alternatives, but they're really just owned by the big carriers and they're almost exactly the same price. So people think that there's real competition in Canada, but there isn't. But I have to choose one. So I chose Kudo Mobile, in which I get 4 gigs of data for $40 a month. So it's still not good. If I was on Ting, I could get 5 gigs for $25. That would be, much better. That's, still cheaper than in Canadian dollars. And I would love to get that plan because I feel like I'm somebody who, uses, I mean, in current times, I'm barely using a gigabyte of data. And if I had the ability to be, with a provider like Ting, I would say I'm switching to the Flex plan tomorrow because I just am not using data right now. But yeah, that is my current plan, and it's slightly depressing. And I know if any Canadians are watching this, they can empathize with me, and hope that someday it will change, and maybe someday we can get Ting in the market. But yeah, I think I think this summer in Toronto, things are looking a little bit brighter, and maybe I will have to switch to a bigger data plan. But I know unlimited data plans in Canada don't really even exist. And if they do, they're like $100 plus a month. So the Canadian, that's one really good thing about not living in Canada is how crazy high cell phone service prices are. Like if you look at the whole world in terms of how much people pay for cell phone service, I'm pretty sure Canada is number 1 or number 2. I think Australia might be above them, but it's like right at the top. It is so expensive, and they end up saying that it's because the country is so large that they've had to build towers everywhere. But I don't know. I think that's. I don't know.
I do have one quick question, and this is sort of a personal thing that I'm curious about. We talked about your wireless provider. Who's your home internet up there in Canada, and what do they run you? I'm curious.
Well, I live in a condo. I actually bought a condo recently. We have fiber in our building, which is awesome. The thing is when you live in a condo, you're limited because you can only pick the kind of providers that I guess own the networks in the building. So internet in Canada is actually a lot better because MVNOs. I mean, they're not called MVNOs, but I guess whatever the internet
Equivalent of
IVNOs.
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They do exist in Canada. Mobile don't, but internet do. So I'm using kind of a company that is piggybacking off one of the big companies. And I got a promo deal for a year where I pay $50 a month for 150 down megabits per second. But I'm actually getting 250, which is awesome. And I think it's probably just because of the fiber connection into the building. Maybe I don't know. I
No,
mean, I know it.
they
I don't know.
most ISPs over provision by about 10% typically,
Nice.
and that's for obvious reasons of trying to make sure that they meet their marketing, hubbub. But
Yeah.
but so you guys don't have like a situation where it's like in the U.S. where it's like just Comcast or else, right? So
No,
it
I
sound-
mean, we don't. We still only have a couple of providers. There are some like the way that Ting is kind of moving into towns and cities in the US, we do have that in Canada. There's one company called Beanfield that has been doing a lot in Toronto and in the surrounding areas where they light up their own fiber, but it's typically mostly just in condo buildings because, there's a lot of overhead to lay fiber. So,
right.
if you do it in a building, it's a little bit cheaper, but to kind of do that to homes, it's a lot more expensive. So you need a lot of capital, which typically only these large companies like Rogers and Bell, which are kind of the big companies in Canada, can do. So
Well,
yeah, yeah.
what I meant by that was you said they were piggybacking. So it sounds like that, like if a Bell wants to run fiber to that last mile to the home, like they can't stop another last mile provider from coming in. Like if I wanted to come in and be like, Dennis's ISP, I'm offering coax to the home, then Bell, if I wanted to pay them, has to give me access to their main backbone, essentially.
I'm not like I don't know for sure, but I know that there is some regulations around that these big companies have to allow other companies to use their network. So
Yeah.
I don't exactly know the restrictions there, but I know that other companies. One of the big ones in Ontario is called Tech Savvy, and they've been, I think, doing a really good job in terms of their marketing and in terms of their I think just brand awareness to really spread the word that you can choose an internet service provider that isn't one of the big companies. And a lot of Canadians do not like these large companies because they know they're getting ripped off. So, they're all kind of swarming to switch to these smaller providers, which is really what I did.
So that is exciting. Well, Jesse, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing everything you shared. Did you want to tell anything to our audience in the last moments that you have with us today?
Yeah, thank you both so much for having me on. This was awesome. I think I think I've kind of lived and breathed in the cell phone space in the US, for the past over 8 years since I started working here. It's a treat to kind of be on. I appreciate it. I think you guys are doing a great job. To anyone watching, I encourage you to kind of look around and find a provider that can help you save more. If you're using one of the big carriers, there's likely a better option out there, not just in a price perspective, from customer service. And we're not the only one. There's some other good providers out there too. But obviously, I'm going to say you got to check out Ting. Got to check out Ting.
Yeah,
Ting.com.
Ting has a promo going on. You can get their 22 gig plan. It's usually $45 a month. You can get your first 3 months for just $25. That is a really good deal. And also, as part of the Ting Partner Program, sign up at stetson.ting.com. Get yourself $25 off your first month of service. That's going to be great.
Yeah, so you'd have a free month of unlimited using stetson.ting.com, and then the next 2 months would also just be $25, which I think is one of, if not, the best unlimited offers, or 22 gigs, which is very close to unlimited. I would say not a lot of people can use more than that unless they don't have home internet. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on. This is great. I love it. I think I will give a shout out. I don't know if anyone watches esports who's watching, but we sponsor the best North American StarCraft 2 player in the world. His gamer tag is Neeb. That's kind of my pride and joy. I found him, and he's playing on Twitch every week, streams almost every day. He's won I think over $550,000 playing StarCraft. Was the first non-Korean ever to win a StarCraft 2 tournament in Korea, which was a pretty big accomplishment. And I think there is, some people online who may be watching this and say, oh, I've heard of Ting from Neeb. So thank you for supporting, and thank you guys for inviting me on, and I appreciate it. Love everything you guys do in the YouTube space. I think you have a really nice niche, and there's not a lot of people out there doing what you do. So keep at it. I think you're helping a lot of Americans save money, which at the end of the day is what Ting wants to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Jesse. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who is listening. Take care and have a great rest of your day.
Peace.
See ya. Peace.